Hey there, it's Anna. I wanted to sit down today and talk a little bit about seeds to sow in August. So even though we are getting toward the end of the summer season, there are still some things that you can plant. There's some things that you can get ready to plant for into your fall garden. And I wanted to just talk through what I am going to be direct sowing into this garden here in August, and some of my kind of ideas for things that you could sow in your garden as well. Now, for reference, I am in zone 7A. I'm here in Virginia, and our first frost date is right at the end of October, somewhere around Halloween. So we do still have, a few months here left where we can really get things growing. Of course, when you start to get into those fall days, the days start getting shorter, things start growing a little bit slower because they just don't have quite the same sunlight. So it's not really like starting things in the spring, but it still is that window of time before frost, and you can get some stuff started now. So one thing to think about is dates to maturity on different seeds. And with that in mind, I am going to be starting some squash. So a couple videos back, I talked a little bit about starting some butternut squash. So I started some Waltman butternut squash, and then I also started a custard squash, basically kind of like a patty pan, a Gelber Englisher custard squash. And both of those are right around 50 days to maturity. So a pretty good window. I probably can feel pretty good that I'm going to get a harvest from those. And I'm also going to throw in this yellow scallop squash in one of my grow bags. Again, 50 days to maturity. And this one grows these nice, like little creamy yellow patty pan style squash. I love these varieties of squashes. They're really, really delicious, kind of a little sweeter than a zucchini and like different depths of flavor, but you can use them in all the same ways. So like throwing them in pasta salads or cooking with them, roasting them, all the things that I do with zucchini, I will do with something like this. And so this is just a fun opportunity to try another variety and see if I can get maybe a harvest by the end of the season. I'm not thinking that I'm gonna get just absolutely mountains of squash, but I definitely hope to get a few squash, and yeah, that's the goal. I'm also going to start a few bunching onions. So I started some of these in July. I started them in some little like nursery kind of cups, 6-packs, and got them going so that I could have starts to plant out, and those I'll probably be planting out into the raised beds probably sometime this month. And then alongside them, I will do like another succession of some more that I will just throw in around the ones that I have as little starts. So these are the Tokyo long white bunching onions. I've had just absolutely great success with this variety, and so I'm gonna give it a go again and put a bunch of these into the soil, just direct sown. And they may not get, let's see, how many days to maturity? 60 to 75. So hopefully they'll get big enough, but in my environment, even if they don't get to their full mature size before frost, I actually have great success with them wintering over and just growing all winter long, and then continuing to mature in the spring and being able to harvest them in the spring as well. So if you have a warm enough winter like I do, that may be an opportunity and an option for you too. I'm going to do some watermelon radishes. This is a radish that actually likes to be started in the heat. And so unlike some of your other radishes, like if I've tried to plant a French breakfast radish or something right now, it would be totally overwhelmed by our 85, 90 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. It would do terribly. But watermelon radishes are ones that you want to start in July, August, like right in this heat. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some of these going. They're a really fun looking little radish. They have like outside is green and then the inside is pink. So they look like mini watermelons. And I've never actually successfully grown them. But a lot of that has been my error because I'll like plant them in places and then realize I don't want them there, and then oh well. But this year I'm going to try to find a good spot where they can grow and just see if I can get a couple, just because it'd be kind of fun to actually have that work. Another thing I'm going to experiment with starting now are beets. I'm not entirely sure if it's gonna be too hot for them, but I'm gonna plant them in kind of like a part shade area and just play around with seeing if that shade is going to be enough for them to get going and do okay. There's 50 to 60 days to maturity, so there's definitely time, and although they may take a little bit longer, they do okay with cold weather, so they should be totally fine in cool temperatures. Now their germination temperature ideally is 60 to 85 degrees, so we'll see if that part shade kind of area will keep it cool enough that they'll be able to get going. So I'll keep you posted on how that goes, but depending on your zone, if you're a little cooler than me, this may be something that you can start in August for sure. I'm also gonna try to do some carrots, kind of on the similar lines, see if I can get them started. I've tried to do carrots later in the fall, and I've had a hard time with them having enough time to really get going and get maturing before the frost. So these are another one, like 85 degrees is kind of the max for germination, but we'll see what happens. And I just picked this coral carrot. It's supposed to be very, very productive and vigorous, and does okay even in heavier soil. So my soils are probably not ideal carrot soils. I actually think I might do these in a grow bag, but still, like, I'm not quite sure that soil is ideal for carrots. So one that can handle the heavier soils I think will be good, and then a really productive, vigorous carrot, that's what we're going for, because I'm trying to kind of push the limits here and see if I can get these going in the summer. Again, if you are in a cooler climate, this might be totally your August seed sowing potential. I want to just touch back on, I have the bull's blood beets for no particular reason other than I thought they were pretty. I don't have a lot of experience with beets, so I just thought that was a pretty variety, if you're wondering why I picked that. Then I'm going to get going a few herbs. So dill, I grew some dill in the spring. It did okay, but it's kind of one that really thrives in a little bit cooler temperatures. So I figure if I get it started now, then we should be really in good shape. Another one, 85 degrees is kind of the max for germination, but I think that these will be just fine. And I may end up doing these in a couple little containers where I can get them started in the shade and then put them out into fuller sun. And I just want to have them bigger and maturing a little larger once we start getting into those September days and October days. I think it would be nice to have the dill ready because it does handle cooler temperatures really well. In my climate, we really have a growing season that even though we can get a frost at the end of October, it's not usually a very hard frost, and I honestly can grow through December. It's not really till I get to January and February that we get those temperatures that are just super, super, super cold, really killing frosts, like, you know, getting into like 20 degrees Fahrenheit and around there. So all of these, as I'm thinking about them, I'm thinking like, even if they can handle a little cooler temperatures, they'll probably grow through Christmas for me, which is super nice. A little bit of fall gardening comes down to just figuring out what works in your particular garden. As you can see too, my garden is very protected, so I tend to handle frosts a little bit better because I just have this fence and everything in a very protected, warm little microclimate. With that in mind, I'm going to get a little bit of parsley growing. Parsley is a super, super cold hardy herb. I'm gonna see if I can get it going outside. If not, I may go ahead and throw some of this in some containers like inside and get it started. But yeah, really just, this is Giant of Italy, just a nice big classic flat leaf parsley. It does say that you should put it in the fridge to help it germinate, cold stratify these seeds. I have not done that. So I may go ahead and throw these in the fridge for a little bit and just let them kind of get cold and have a little bit of time before I plant them out, or I may just also try to see what happens if I plant a few. And then cilantro, another one that when I grow it in the spring, it gets so hot so quickly here that everything bolts. So if I get it started now, then it'll be able to grow into the cooler temperatures and hopefully not bolt quite as fast. And I also have the slow bolt variety, so that should help with some of that bolting too. Bolting is when it starts to flower and just usually ruins the taste of the herb. And then I'm going to go ahead and experiment with a few greens. I have a lot of greens started inside right now. In July, I did a bunch of greens for starts inside. They're doing beautifully. They look amazing. And I thought I would just kind of experiment with what I can get going direct sown. It may not germinate super well, but it may, and I just want to kind of try it out a few things. So I pulled out a couple different seed packets. I have some space hybrid spinach, and I may just throw a little bit of this again in my kind of part shade bed and see if that will get started to give myself just a little jump start on some spinach harvests. And the nice thing about this one is it's like container size friendly. It's a very small, compact little spinach plant. Arugula hardly ever has an issue for me. It usually does super well. So let's see, does it have a temperature on here? I don't think it says. I'm gonna get, I mean, they're just a couple, I feel like a microgreens packet, and this is a slow bolt one, so this is ideal for this time of year because it is gonna be slower to bolt. I'm gonna pop some of these in and see if they'll germinate, and if so, then have a little early arugula harvest. 21 days to baby greens for the slow bolt arugula, which is amazing. It'd be so nice to have some fresh arugula out of the garden, and it'll probably be pretty spicy if it's growing in this heat, which would be really good. And then as it starts to mature more, the temperatures will cool down, and again, hopefully that'll slow bolting. I'm going to try some upland cressy greens, which these actually do grow in the heat. These have no issue with that. They're kind of similar to like a watercress, but they're pretty mild and you can use them in salad. So a really good option, and about 20 to 50 days to harvest. So again, like plenty of time before a frost to get some upland cressy greens going and have them just, you know, for throwing into your salad. Even if you buy all the other salad greens from the grocery store, at least you have a little bit from your garden, which is kind of fun. And then again, in this part shade area, we're gonna try some dazzling blue kale, my favorite kale. Let's see, what's the temperature? Again, 85 degrees. So I'm like pushing it right on the edge with the germination temperatures. But yeah, 30 to 60 days. This is my favorite kale. And this kale, if you eat it like in the winter when it's been through a couple frosts and the sugars have started to really consolidate into the leaves, is so sweet and delicious. And I don't like kale. I am not a kale fan, but dazzling blue kale, amazing. My favorite kale. The only kale really that I want to eat, to be honest. And then I also picked up a Freckles romaine lettuce. I love these kind of freckled lettuces. They're always favorites of mine. And romaine tends to be the most heat tolerant of any lettuces. So we're gonna give it a go and see. That one I'm not sure is gonna germinate. Again, I have a bunch of greens that I started inside, and if you wanna make sure that you get good germination, absolutely, you know, start those things indoors and you'll have great luck. Some of the other things you can still get going this time of year for a second succession are things like zinnias. A lot of zinnias are like 35 days to flowers, so you may still have time. If I planted zinnias now, I could have flowers in September. Cucumbers you can still get going. As I said, the squashes, the zucchinis. Beans are a great one. I started some of those in July, but you could start some now in August. Bush beans, pole beans, those are great options. I'm trying to think what else I've started this time of year. More herbs, basil, anything like that is really great too. The longer season things like peppers and tomatoes, that's starting to get harder to do. But if you have starts or you buy starts that are big enough, it is an option for a second planting of those crops as well. So some fun things to just think about, some good seeds. It is definitely not the end of the season, and it is just the beginning of the fall garden. So much that can happen in this time. I'll keep you posted as I start to plant these over the next few weeks, and how the germination goes on some of these that I'm not quite sure about. I'll definitely keep you posted. Anyways, thank you so much for watching today. I hope you're having an awesome day in your garden, and I'll talk to you in the next video.